These are all of DRX's major tournament placements in the past 2 years. And although none of these finishes were that bad, you can imagine that DRX never got the result that they were hoping for. The DRX roster is a true rarity in modern day esports, where huge roster blowups happen every single season and sometimes in the middle of them. But DRX have been playing together since early 2021, and it really seemed like they were going to stick it out and try again in 2024. However, after an early loss in an off-season tournament, DRX suddenly dropped RB and Zest, putting an end to their multi-year run as Korea's best team. In this video, we'll explore why DRX were way ahead of their time and played a huge part in shaping modern-day competitive Valorant, but we'll also dive deep into what problems might have held them back from even greater international success. Lastly, we'll explore something that happened during their final matches together that made them all reconsider their situation. Thanks to Immortal Roadmap for sponsoring this video. If your rank is below Radiant, you play at least 2 to 3 comp games a day, and you've been struggling to rank up, our sponsor has a crazy offer for you. The Immortal Roadmap program will teach and help you implement everything you need to hit Immortal Plus in 8 weeks. They're so confident in their coaching that they are the only coaching program that offers a 5 division rank up in 8 weeks guarantee or your money back. They've helped hundreds of students hit Immortal and Radiant, and their coaching staff consists of Konpeki and over a dozen Radiant coaches with VCT experience, such as Comet, who's an analyst on Ascend the year they won champs in 2021, Screwface, who's the 6th man on EG when they won champions in 2023, and Gangsta, who played on Disguised, Immortals, and Knights. If that offer sounds good to you, sign up fast, as only 8 spots remain for Season 17. Okay, let's get back to the video. To fully understand DRX, we need to go all the way back to when they first came onto the scene as the Vision Strikers. Vision Strikers were an utterly dominant team during the early stages of competitive Valorant. They gained a lot of notoriety for their 100-game win streak, where they destroyed opponents with their unique playstyle. Vision Strikers were one of the first teams to show everyone the full potential of utility in a game like Valorant. Before modern-day Paper X existed, Vision Strikers were the ones pushing you into your spawn. They had so many immediate defensive traps that would completely catch teams off guard, and they are a big reason why pushes like this are common today. When they were on attack, there wasn't a single site safe from their explosive executes, and the main reason for this was their approach to Valorant was just so far ahead of their time. Let's take a look at the types of comps they're running back in 2020. Vision Strikers were already running solo duelist comps from very early on to allow for more tactical utility with double initiator comps. These solo duelist comps actually look very similar to team comps that we see in modern day Valorant, but they were being played by Vision Strikers at a time when teams would play double and sometimes even triple duelist. Here's a clip from them from the first Strike tournament back in 2020. First, watch how their opponents execute sight. Their main goal is to clear the choke fast with their duelists, but have very basic duelist pathing.
Aggressive here, but shot in the face is Bunny.
Vision Strikers, on the other hand, know how to achieve much more with just one duelist. Watch how RB smokes the entry point for his team to flood through and is already implementing the dash to top gen back in 2020. On top of that, Vision Strikers were using their double initiators to constantly contest areas that are important for retakers. Vision Strikers never let F4Q get comfortable in A Heaven this round, and cycled Breach utility over and over to contest it.
A perfect time. That's why Breach is so popular.
This team mastered a high utility solo duelist playstyle very early on, and it's a huge reason for why they've been able to stay relevant all these years. Their playstyle stayed the same when they were signed by DRX in 2022, and while teams around the world started to adapt to solo duelist comps, DRX just had so much more experience with these comps that their util usage was at the point where sites looked impossible to hold against them.
What kind of adaptations are they going to be making? It's a fast play, flash over the top, the haunt. Was destroyed though, and a lovely stun into the corner. How is Buzz just leading them in like this?
Even though DRX's initial style of Valorant was future-proof, there were always specific nuances in every meta that they were never able to fully adopt. For example, during the chamber meta in 2022, they played many maps without a chamber, like in this match against Zeta at Masters Reykjavik. Zeta were able to implement chamber in the first map, and Laz carried them. Looking at everyone's team comps during the 3 major events in 2022, chamber was picked 264 times out of 418 team comps, which was a 63.2% pick rate. But DRX only picked chamber in 48% of their games. In games where one team had a chamber and the other didn't, the team with the chamber won 60% of the time. This data just shows how important chamber was for a team's success in 2022. Thanks to augment.gg for providing me the data for this research. You can check them out in the description below. DRX's best chance at a championship was during Champions in 2022, and in their final match against Optic, they went with their comfort picks in a double initiator comp, while Optic played chamber instead of a second initiator. And we all know what happens when Optic plays chamber. So DRX must have sucked at chamber if they weren't gonna pick him, right? Well, actually, after Zeta destroyed DRX with chamber, they picked it in the following map and Buzz carried them, dropping 27 kills on Ascent. Even though DRX only picked chamber in 21 games throughout 2022, they won more than 70% of their games with chamber, which is actually even higher than Optic, who only won 65% of their games on chamber. So why didn't DRX just pick chamber more? The real answer is never that simple. Imagine being DRX, a team who started the solo duelist double initiator trend, and were still one of the best at it by 2022. Suddenly, the meta shifts and chamber is a must-have, but your best choice for chamber is your solo duelist player, who has been playing that role incredibly well for the last 2 years. This caused very complicated role and identity issues for DRX on many occasions. If Buzz was playing chamber, who was going to play solo duelist? RB is the obvious choice since he used to be the solo duelist, but you can't expect the same output from him when he's been flexing around on so many different agents. During this best of 5 match against Optic, RB literally played 5 different agents, 4 of which are on completely different roles. It's just impossible to expect RB to play all those different agents and roles well. You can also see that they tried to put RB on chamber, but it just didn't seem to work. DRX's most dominant map this series was on Ascent, where they played triple initiator with Buzz on solo duelist, and they completely ran over Optic on this map and showed us again why they were so strong at these types of comps.
Buzz has been dashing. It's a counterplay in action, but all the utility in the world still gets dumped into this site. It's down to Ye, anchoring at the back, but being spammed out and pressured just too hard.
Now you can see why DRX had this dilemma. They were so good at their style, but were also playing at a time when a good chamber player could win games all by themselves. And DRX's issues with adapting to the meta never really stopped. During Champions in 2023, most teams were playing double duelist comps on split. Teams who didn't have another duelist would pick a second initiator, but DRX continued to play 1 duelist and 1 initiator. They ended up losing 3 out of 4 maps on split when they stuck to this comp during Champs, despite it being one of their best maps of all time, having won 84% of all their professional matches on split. DRX have always had a good utility-based approach to Valorant, but they really struggled to adapt to meta changes that could have given them the edge they needed deep into tournament runs. But there's something else that I noticed during some of their important matches over the years. Do you see something off about these stat lines? In these games, DRX's first bloods are very disproportionate to the number of rounds they won. In this game, DRX got 10 first bloods but only won 4 rounds in total. These are usually the types of games that reveal deeper issues that a team has. Now, I know what everyone's gonna say. These first bloods from DRX were probably traded instantly, but even in that case, it still hints that DRX could be playing more disjointed setups without teammates to trade them back. And we can actually look at the number of trades that each team was getting during Champs in 2023. Instead of the raw number of trades, we can look at the trades to deaths ratio to understand what percentage of deaths are being traded for each team. For example, EG had the highest percentage of deaths traded at nearly 19%. Now let's look at the statistic for all participating teams at Champions 2023. Remember that DRX was a top 6 team this tournament, but they weren't in the top half of trade percentages, nor were they in the middle. DRX actually had the lowest trades to death ratio by far out of every single team at Champions 2023. And we can definitely see this play out during their match against EG. In round 10, EG slowly work up A main and prepare to hit A. Ethan uses Sky Ult and it glitches out a little bit here, tricking EG into thinking there was no one on site, so Boostio runs straight through the Viper Orb into Zest. This starts a really good exchange for DRX, which ultimately ends in a 4v2 situation with the bomb dropped on site. Suddenly, 2 players run into Demon 1 on the flank and lose 2 consecutive 1v1s to put the round back into a 2v2. Late into the round, Stax holds the flank by himself and dies when he commits to a fight, leaving RB, who was one of the first players to even fight on A, as the last alive. DRX had multiple opportunities to play this round better, but kept taking solo fights instead. And what we're seeing is DRX forgetting to reassess the game state, especially after each kill or death, which results in a lot of poor decision making. Firstly, what should have happened on this flank? Once the fight finishes on A, Buzz and Mako should realize, hey, we aren't going to make this fight on time anyway. Let's slow it down and make sure we can stabilize our numbers advantage. Buzz dies a couple seconds after the exchange ends on A, but Mako has a great opportunity to just completely forget about the 1v1, which is taking place in attacker spawn, and just back off. Not only does DRX have a 3v2, but info of where both players are and control of the bomb. Ironically, after Mako loses this 1v1, EG are the ones who group up to fight together, but Stax takes another deep solo peek when there are only 30 seconds left in the round. Stax can still play to gather some info towards spawn, but should ultimately take a fight where RB has a chance to at least contribute. And we see another similar situation happen on round 8, when DRX have to retake B. DRX get a free kill spraying into the Viper ult, but then rushed themselves and immediately gave back their advantage. Take note how both players die before the Omen blind even finishes. And on top of that, Stax had Fatal, which is incredibly strong for this position, and Zest used his own Viper ult to counter EGs, but the C-Link pushers did not wait for either before giving away their retake advantage. DRX have really struggled with capitalizing on their advantages, especially against the best teams in the world who are disciplined enough to punish their mistakes. When we go back to the 3 scorecards with a big imbalance between rounds 1 and First Bloods, the 3rd scorecard was actually from one of DRX's final matches together against Sentinels at the AVL tournament. DRX continued to struggle with closing out clear leads this tournament. For example, we saw them fumble this 5v3 pistol round retake against Sentinels when they again couldn't find the right setups to fight together. Mako smokes off their own crossfire between Heaven and Short. Then, the first couple fights are very disjointed, with no chances to trade, and DRX ends up losing all their 1v1s.
Good catch. It's hard to tell that John's already going to be there. Only 2 members left.
Now, it's an even 2v2, but DRX have just spent too much time to gain control of the bomb, and failed to close out their advantage again.
The diffuser will get taken out. The half is done, though. RB trying to bait him in. It's not going to be enough.
Against Paper Rex, DRX continued to struggle with capitalizing on small advantages as a team.
That there are members coming, but something is trying to get the kills here. The Cove now expired. Something gets another one, switches over to the Sheriff, and now Divine picks up the Vandal. He has to reload. Recognizes it now. The half had been done. Divine recognizes this, and he'll find.
But they also struggled to find openings in many defensive rounds, which is something that DRX used to be very, very good at. During this Breeze game, we saw a couple failed solo plays from Buzz, which just gave away rounds. But on top of that, we saw full-on gamble stack calls. Both of these things are very bad signs for team cohesion and trust, especially for a team that has played together for years. All players must have felt something needed to change in order to reach the top, even if that meant going their separate ways. I have hopes that one day their squad will reunite and compete for a championship again, but for now, RB has found a home at Titan Esports Club, which is a Chinese Tier 1 team, while Zest is currently playing through the Pacific Challenger qualifiers. Only time will tell if DRX is able to reinvent themselves through these roster changes. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that despite never winning a championship, DRX have always been one of the most entertaining teams to watch. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for making it all the way to the end, and I'll see you guys next time.